Before we start with our next session, we would appreciate it if could everyone provide your feedback on the session just now. The feedback form link is pasted in chat panel. Now it's time to take a selfie. We would appreciate it if everyone could turn on their camera. All right, our technical team, ready? Ready, okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. One more time, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, now you can turn off your camera.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Thank you, Prof. All right, we have now come to a forum called Computing Power and Devices for Innovation Teaching. The panel speakers of this forum are Dr. Hafizul Fahri Hanafi, Dr. James Walsh, and Associate Professor Technology Specialist Dr. Nurhizam Safie. This session will be moderated by Mr. Hasnain, Senior Manager from the IMU E-Learning Department. Now, I am pleased to invite Mr. Hasnain to begin the forum.
Thank you, Nurul. Yeah, hope all our guests are here. Can you please on your cameras and let me confirm? I could see Dr. James there. Yeah, Dr. Nurhizam is there. Thanks for joining on time. Can I confirm the third guest?
I'm Dr. Faisal, replacement for Dr. Ashardi.
Sure. Thanks. Okay, just to let you know that this is a forum and we'll be discussing on computing power and devices for innovative teaching. And the format would be like every guest or speaker will get 15 to 20 minutes each to just brief about this topic, and then last 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes at the end, we will have question and answer sessions. Okay, so all our audience, please feel free to use chat and post your questions, and I will actually aggregate all these questions and I will ask at the end from the speakers. Right? Is that okay?
Okay, no problem.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay, so yes, Dr. Hafizul, you were saying something?
Yes, I'm saying okay.
Okay, right. It's thumbs up. Right. Perfect. So can I invite first of all Dr. Nurhizam, and please briefly introduce yourself, and we can start with you, and you can have like 15 minutes to just set the foundation on that topic. Over to you, Dr. Nurhizam.
Yeah, my time. Just have a mid-class. Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. My name is, mentioned, Dr. Nurhizam Safie, Associate Professor in the Faculty of Information Science and Technology, University Kebangsaan Malaysia. As the Deputy Dean as well, I'm in charge for a few courses to teach, as well as for the industrial linkages and network. I have more than 26 experience teaching, running my own startup company in private and public university, including Open University Malaysia, Asia University, and with the United Nations University in Macau. So more or less, when we are talking about power of computing and the devices, is more or less we are talking about the so-called, at the moment, I just start the fundamentals for this 15 minutes, about the so-called, I don't know, it's a hype, heap or whatever on the Industrial Revolution 4.0. Then people will say, when is the IR 4, 1.0, 2.0, 3 and above? So when we are talking about this Industrial Revolution 4.0, people are looking or thinking about, hey, looks here, this is the time that we in industry, we are in what we call it academy, looking into the usage or exploitations of exploitation of the technology itself. So what is basically IR 4.0? If you are in the IT, because I'm from the IT background, basically when you're talking about the manipulations of this technology into the education, people will talk about, namely at the moment, number one is about the big data, maybe big data analytics. Second, cloud. And where is the computer on the cloud? We could not see it up there. You're looking using Gmail is basically examples of cloud-based technology. Or maybe you have this Alibaba cloud, you have Amazon, Google platforms, so on and so forth. And then maybe you have this so-called, just now I mentioned about AI or 3D printing or a few others, IoT, cyber security. There are many, that's a lot. And then you will say that, wow, do I need as a student to know about all this? Or do I need as educators, professors, lecturers to know? It's like seamless. I need to learn a lot, and the technology is, according to, maybe there's a theory, double up every 6 months by the Intel, if I'm not mistaken. Sometimes I also forgotten about this. Meaning to say it's very fast. Do I need to catch up on it as a student? Or maybe our student will say, hey, I'm going to my class. Just now, I just had my class before I joined one company, came from Sweden. They want to have a collaboration with us. In my class, I saw most of my students. I have 59 students. I thought I'm teaching at the moment business process management. I saw some of them, they are using a game spec computer, laptop. Some are using the, what we call it, iPad. Imagine, and some normal computers. So what, simply during the presentation, I asked why. Some they said, we want the RAM to be good because we are doing the coding. And some said, I just brought my iPad. And some only, even traditionally, they just scribble down. Oh, this is really traditional. Therefore, I just get a survey of that. In fact, in my class, I'm only using the so-called simple PowerPoint slide or PowerPoint, and some of the presentation I'm using Canva, and then the student can do the presentation. Since for this semester we do have the so-called physical, no more hybrid, and even the students, international student in my class, Indonesian, Chinese from China, and we have from Bangladesh and some other parts. So meaning to say it's a blend. To me, basically, since my early days, gone the days in the 90s, when you want to do your assignment, you need to go to the traditional library, run after the lecturer said, okay, go to the library, find some books. No internet. Imagine during that time, how's the student, how's the researchers doing their article writing, or having their so-called thesis, PhD. So imagine during that time, my postulation, number one, can we survive without the so-called technology in teaching, learning? Do we need to have a very powerful devices? So I have my eldest daughter is studying in one of the private uni, and then she mentioned to me, Papa, I want to buy a laptop. Okay, just give you a scenario. What kind of laptop? I want, because I'm in mass comm. You see, just mass comm. But I want this. I said, this is a game spec. It's not really for mass comm. I think in mass comm you're only having this. No. I want to have this. I think you are more like following your colleague, your friends, your peers, having those and those brand, and you want them. You want it. Then I asked the lecturer, hey, do you need this? My daughter would like to have this. No, it's only a minimum kind of thing. But I think also it's okay. We can get a good one, and then maybe furnishing for this Adobe editing. I don't know, a few videos for the editing kind of thing lah. Yeah. So sometimes it depends. Again and again, I would say, it's about the so-called requirements that being used in your class. You can have a very fancy technology or very up to date, but is it really you are maximizing it, or you are very fancy about your IR4? Sorry, I just have with me now. I cannot Yeah, just my book in Malay, yeah, about this revolution industrial 4.0. Not really marketing, but I try to see current technology benefits for future. In English, try to translate. In UKM, professor need to write in bahasa as well. So what I want to share, sometimes, how do we exploit, my word manipulate the technology? So maybe I have another 5 minutes. I cut short by 12. I can complete that. Okay, number one, technology is there, IR4. And then some will talk, I don't know, IR 5.0. I think IR4, so you don't know, you want to go. Maybe society 5.0 in Japan, yes. Not really. You are looking IR 5.0, right? Maybe in Malaysia, for example, we are still like even the industry, we want to move forward. And some industry, when we conduct research, industry, hey, look here, we are already IR 4.0. You see, we are using MS Excel. Just Excel. We have the CCTV, IR4. I said, not the CCTV and Excel, my dear company. Some, they don't have the misconception about the so-called ideas about this computing power. Hey, I need only a small normal phone. Why I need to have more? Some, they just come to class, maybe like my daughter, because the friends bring all these gadgets. I want to bring game spec. So these are actually some of the issues that we should see from different perspectives. Maybe as student, as lecturer, we learn, we study, or we just Google. The word now Google, internet searching. Is it really for me? Is it this kind of advance, or just simply we buy and after that we not really use it 100% as a student, or maybe as a teachers, or maybe the teachers. In fact, in UKM, for example, we do have this ActiveX. We have a collaboration with Apple, some discount for the students to buy or the professors to buy those gadgets. To me, very simple. If you want to leverage on the so-called technology of this IR4, we must embrace properly, read, studies, and then collaborate with friends. Hey, why are you using this game spec? And then know each other. Then only we can benefit or read the ideas of product for the so-called computing power or devices. Otherwise, it's only like a hype, okay, and the next, we have now this extended IoT. I want to give a talk on IoT. Then the guy said, why don't you on extended IoT? I was, what's that? Some of the, university asking about that. So I'm feeling like, okay, I myself as a lecturer also sometimes could not catch up with all this. We need to say, okay, we just pick IR4, what's the benefit for the computing power and the devices. Imagine now, you are no longer put your, what we call it, our files on our desktop physically or our notebook. We put it on the cloud. You have your storage, whatever it is. It's really a beauty of technology at this moment. Imagine of that. So for the professors, teaching, you can download or share with the student. Even you can collaboratively edit assignment, article, papers, whatever. Computing power, of course. Now we are looking at 5G. People are talking, wow, 5G. Even if you go to Cyberjaya, our so-called Silicon Valley, see how you access your internet, intermittent, right? 4G, 5G, 4G, even you could not access. Just be proud. I don't know, because I'm staying nearby, then I can see what's the issue sometimes. Is it really they want to for the people or what? 5G. If you go even to Thailand, at the southern border of Thailand, Padang Besar, and or this Golok, you can good access. Imagine. We are talking about 5G, part of this IR4 also to access the cloud, for us to make work. Imagine a bless as well for our COVID-19 happening. For the student, you need to study at home. For the lecturers, professors to do 2.5 years, in which this semester they're coming 5 semesters at home, learning and teaching. So it shows how innovative we go for online learning. on our platform, on our learning management system, by having maybe computing power, but pity some of the secondary school, they have one notebook, one phone to be shared among the 3 or 4 siblings. Then we need to check as well. Yeah, you have a powerful, but need to be shared. One notebook, 2.5 years. But from there, innovatively, we know, oh, now we have this hybrid. Then the powerful of what? Now we are on the Zoom platform. Sometimes we are using, I don't know, another MS Teams. These are some of the beauty because of this pandemic. Okay, I think I end that now for this trigger discussion. I'll check on the chat and maybe over to the moderator. Yeah.
Sure.
Over. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I really appreciate you have actually done it very nicely in a allocated time. So let's move on to our next distinguished guest, Dr. Faisal. Can you please share your thoughts on the topic for next 15 minutes? And then last but not the least, our own Dr. James, he will be talking at the end. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hasnain.
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Dr. Faisal. I'm from University Pendidikan. It's not perguruan. It's not the teacher university, but education university. Yeah, I can saw the banner itself is stated perguruan, but for me is education university. Okay, I'm Dr. Hafizul. I'm a senior lecturer, Faculty of Arts, Computing and Creative Industry. I'm currently active doing NFT that we call non-fungible token, and also for metaverse learning environments. I also do a lot of training for programming and so on since back in 2003 and until now. Okay. If you talk about the computing power, is basically you want to teach the student how to think like a computer, and fundamentally it will transform the education experiences to be like to model to look alike, and then I think it is each student should define their own experiences. For now, we can have like a metaverse learning. What is the metaverse learning? It is an improved digital environment that you can play, shopping, socializing, and do a lot of creativities. Okay, and then the user also used to have a wearable hardware like the head-mounted glasses to feel the reality for purely virtual world that will interacting via the avatars. We call it as avatars. It is more likely that you capture your face, and then your face is transformed into a digital forms, and then you can place and you can also tailor your face based on the experience. Like you can play nowadays Pokemon Go on the phone, and then if you want to experience more on the metaverse learning, you can go for decentraland.org. This one is one of my favorite teaching and learning environments for students. Okay, and then if you go by the visual learnings, all of us knows about the common technology that we use. But Barco, we connect technology that use a lot of cameras and a lot of screen, like Prof. Zaidatun, she's uses a lot of screen. Okay, this one is more about the visual classroom. And then one of the company in Toronto, Canada, developed the technology that so-called cave technology that provide the collaborative environments, whereas the virtual reality head-mounted that isolates the user from their immediate surroundings. Okay, we have immediate surroundings that a student will learn based on their tactile experiences that he or she can touch the table and so on. This one is basically in visual learning. Okay, if you can search for the devices, if you want to buy some devices, you can find out the devices like Tutor Plus, Tutor Plus in Amazon, that will convert any normal TVs or monitors into a touch screen for digital whiteboarding. This one is very useful when you want to teach in visual learning. And then the other technology that I can share with you guys is the immersive 360 rooms. It is same like that I discussed just now, is like the immersive learnings, that a classroom that bring the real world into school through a fully immersive environment using wine, smoke, sound, and visual. This one is that we call it as a 5D experiences. Okay, these immersive learnings that will create an interactive environment in which learners have to power to customize their experiences based on their needs. Based on their needs. This one we call it as immersive 360 room. And then other than that, we can have also in US, they're also currently producing the devices like a tangible table, that based on a special construction model that made of LED screen and touch screen, that can share the immersive content based on the instructor and also based on the students. This one is called a tangible table. Other than that, we can also see a lot of artificial intelligence by using robots, robotics. Okay, nowadays, example of intelligence for the classroom. Okay, in Jianhua Kiasun County Primary School, if you search for the YouTube, you can find out the example. They're using the what we call as a headband, surrounding their head. That student wear the brainwave that can read the focusing level of their students, and then the teacher can monitor the students and be able to report the report card directly to their parents. This technology, I think, we should implement in our classroom. First is artificial intelligence, and then currently also in Taiwan, they're using the face recognition for students to capture their emotion based on their emotions, and also to capture their attendance systems by capturing the student photos and inserting them and storing them into clouds. Okay, and then after that, the system will encode all the images and presented in a database itself. Okay, all of this technology itself, I think, is based on the profiling. That can personalization in teaching and learning. Okay, and then a teacher also can add curating a day to day experiences and be able to allowing to students to have agencies and creativities. Okay, I think Mr. Hasnain, I think that's all from me. I think it's better to get back to you.
Yeah, thanks for actually accumulating and summarizing all about metaverse. And I think there will be in detail, there will be another talk tomorrow also. But good. And the way, if you don't mind, could you share the links? I tried to search some while you were talking. And meanwhile, Dr. James will share his thoughts on computing power and devices and how we could innovatively use for teaching.
Okay,
yes.
I will share in the chat.
Yeah, thanks
box.
a lot. Over to you, Dr. James. And please introduce yourself also. You need to unmute. Dr. James.
the power of technology, Hasnain. If you don't click it, it doesn't work. Um, so I'm Dr. James Walsh, the head of pre-university studies in IMU. I'm Irish by birth, but I've been in Malaysia nearly 12 years. So I teach physics and computer science because my degree was in physics with maths and computer science. So I teach the students how to write mobile apps. I'm lucky that my staff are very young in pre-U, relatively, and they're all very techy. They're very good at using the tech and advice. So rather than talk about the tech use, I want to talk about the philosophy of how it's applied in a generic sense, because I think my colleagues have covered that already. So, in terms of technology, we all want to have the top of the range hybrid classroom with panning cameras, pickup mics, interactive TVs, etc. But obviously there's a very high cost to this, and a lot of universities can't afford to have these in every room. So in IMU we have plenty of them, but they're focused on key teaching actions. You don't want to fit out rooms with very expensive equipment and then have a staff who's not techie, not because of any badness, but just because of their generation. They're not techie, and they're doing traditional chalk and talk in a hybrid classroom with all the 100,000 ringgits worth of equipment standing around them unused. So with the high-tech equipment needs to come training, empathic training for everybody. Now, obviously younger staff are more techie than some of the older staff who are obviously very experienced and very knowledgeable. So there has to be empathic training, and people can't just be forced into using it because it will impact on their lectures. If giving a traditional PowerPoint-based lecture or chalk and talk is better for them to deliver their excellent knowledge to the students, then so be it. If it's badly applied through high tech, the students will suffer. The other thing is that the software for the technology needs to fit the needs of the users, the specific users in the university. So I'll give you an example of this. I saw a hybrid classroom once, and I asked, I think in my talk yesterday, we demonstrated how you can write on a tablet on your PDF. Let's say it's a tutorial, you can do the solutions, you can highlight, and it's saved in the PDF. But I was at an exhibition, and there was a hybrid TV, teaching TV, and I said, and you could write on it and you could highlight in your lectures, but when you scroll down, your writing didn't scroll with it. It wasn't captured. You had to screenshot every one and save it. So for a typical lecture, that's 50 screenshots. So it was an excellent piece of hardware with terrible software behind it. And I told the vendor that my 1,000 ringgit tablet is better at doing this than your 50,000 ringgit TV. So the hardware is only as good as the software. So when you get to the purchasing stage, I mean, the hardware is a given, everybody can see that it's good, but the software needs to be tested, not by people like me, I do teach, but the management, me saying this is great software and forcing it on my staff to use. The people who are at the coalface, particularly the techie people from each department, need to be given a trial period with the software to say, yep, this works for us. A classic example is buying software that can't, say, in a scientific university like IMU, that can't deal easily with chemical equations and ChemDraw and mathematical equations. So, because using equation editor can be quite slow, for example. So sometimes it's easier to write it. So what are the compromises you have to make in terms of speed? If a student was to use ChemDraw, for example, in an exam, electronically, it would make it a very long exam because different people have different skill sets with it. So the software, and to a certain extent the hardware, needs to be assessed by the end users and obviously the students. The students want it to be high tech. So there's no point in having tech that doesn't do specifically what you want to do from a software point of view. And what happens is software packages are purchased, and then we find out, oh, it doesn't do this, oh, it doesn't do that, and it begins to filter up from the coalface that we need to make adaptations to it. Then we go back to the vendor and we get it reprogramming, and the vendors do a great job, but that's very expensive. That's where they make their money. in the after sales, you have to keep going back. They sell you a basic package. So it's important to get a bespoke package for your needs at the beginning. And then you have tech leads in the faculties who can filter up the information, what's required in pharmacy, what's required in dentistry, what's required in foundation in science, because we all have slightly different teaching needs. So to try and get the most versatile bespoke package obviously at the minimum cost. Then what are the students' needs? So will they benefit from the tech, or will they get the same grades with traditional chalk and talk? Hopefully the tech will improve the student experience. And students these days are very techy. They don't use desktop computers. I'm from a generation where we had desktop computers. I wrote my PhD on a Commodore 64. It had a 64K of RAM, not megabytes of RAM, K. So I recently saw it in the Saints Nagara as an example of an early computer, which made me feel very old. Yeah. So, but my son said, "Wow, your computer is in a museum. You should be in a museum." You know what I mean? So people of our generation need to adapt. And sometimes we can. Sometimes people are not techie. So there has to be empathic training and support for them, and we have to adapt to their needs. And obviously the needs of the student. So I teach in mobile apps, and we have excellent equipment in IMU, desktop PCs, but invariably the students say, "Can I use my own laptop?" So what are is that focused equipment going to be used by the students, or do they have their own mindset coming in? I can remember being in my former employer, and they used to give the student handbook and the information on enrollment on a CD. And we would enroll 1,000 students. And I remember at the enrollment asking, "Hands up, those of you who have a CD player." About 3 hands went up. This generation has never used a CD, a lot of them. So you have to say, okay, what's the alternative? Thumb drive, download it from the portal. And IMU are very good at this, at moving with the technology. And I'm sure our competitors are as well. So you need then in the other rooms, if there's an expectation, if the students are in a hybrid classroom one day, then they have that expectation every day. But not every room is a hybrid for obvious reasons of cost, etc. So therefore, there has to be hybrid equivalence in the other room. That there has to be use of tablets. I demonstrated it yesterday, sharing, because as we give the students more, they demand more in terms of technology, and they're very techy, and they're on their phones. I mean, I see students in my lectures now, and they don't have notes. Rarely see paper notes these days. They have a tablet for sure. They have a laptop, and lots of them are reading the notes on their phone. So in many universities, we have traditional flip desks. So for example, which were for putting writing on and writing your notes. They were designed ergonomically for that purpose. But the flip desks of the future have to be designed ergonomically for putting a laptop on or a PC, etc., etc. So even the furniture has to adapt to the technology, and it will. And we're all making those changes. Plugs, for example, in a lecture theatre, if you have 300 students, as we have in one foundation intake, there aren't 300 plugs. And sometimes students are very blur and don't charge up their computers, etc. So they're running all around the place looking for plug sockets. Are we going to put 300 plug sockets? No, we have to train the students to be responsible and make sure their tech is well charged up. So will every student desk in the future have a USB port on it, like in an airplane now? And how long would that technology last for? So these are questions in terms of costs and overhead and the longevity of some technology. So there are technologies that we thought were fantastic. I remember, I'll finish up now, Hasnain, when I had the aforementioned Commodore 64, and we got an Amstrad computer which had a 24 megabyte hard drive. And I thought this was going to be the end of science. We were going to be able to compute the universe on this. 2 years later, it was in the bin. So the technology we use has a very limited lifetime, and the students' need for the latest technology can be quite demanding. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. James, for actually bringing in the software and hardware aspect. And I think we should not forget the users, and you have highlighted also very nicely. And the behavior, like 300 plugs, very difficult to find,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if the students come in and are charging their computers there rather than at home, do we embed that in the fees? 300 computers plugged in every day charging up is going to be a significant bill for the university. So I don't have the solution to this, but there are things we need to consider at all levels, corporate, financial, and academic within the university, I think.
Yeah. This reminds me when we were purchasing tablets, and we raised this issue, like how to charge them. So there was a trolley where you have to plug in after office hours to make sure that next working day it's charged. Yeah.
I saw a picture sadly in the Ukraine, where one of the cities during the unfortunate conflict had no electricity, and they set up generators, and you'd expect people would be cooking or heating or something. No, there was 1 million phones plugged into the generator. That's all that was plugged into it, was hand phones. People's priority is to communicate rather before they eat even. So yeah, this is the new world, Anyway, so sorry for cutting across you, Hassan.
No, it's okay. So let's move on. Very nicely, all our guests actually highlighted first about Internet of Things, Industrial Revolution 4.0, and you were mentioning, Dr. Nurhizam, about Internet of Things. In our medical world, we have Internet of Medical Things, IOMT. And then Dr. Hafizul, you have highlighted about metaverse and wearable computing, the way it's advances. Yeah. So nowadays we are actually having so many gadgets and devices, they are talking to each other without user intervention and all that. And then I really like what Dr. James highlighted about hardware and software, and we should not forget the user. Okay, so one question from our audience, Dr. Sivalingam. The power of technology presents many options for learning. The interactivity and interface used clearly have advantages in learning. Could you share our concerns about security in sharing personal data in the process of learning? Yes, anyone to start with? Maybe Dr. Nurhizam or James? Yes, Dr. James, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed the last part. The concerned about what? Security, was it?
Security, yes, personal data in the process of learning.
Yeah. Well, obviously, sorry, Doctor, go ahead.
It's okay. Maybe you
well,
take your time.
obviously, the first one to answer Dr. Siva's question in security is exam results, which are P&C and private, and they're published on the web and etc. So that needs to be kept secure. And then obviously student data, all of their personal information, where they're from, that needs to be to protect the student, but it also needs to be protected from our competitors. It's very powerful information for our competitors. How many students we have, what their grades are, what their phone numbers are. We're in a private university and it's a competitive world. So yeah, then obviously the exams database. I mean, we moved from Moodle to OAS. Moodle was an excellent exam platform, but it wasn't as secure as OAS. So OAS has some constraints, but it's an excellent package, and it's very secure. So that's the thing. You have to sometimes security comes with compromises in terms of flexibility. So there's you're constantly compromising, but obviously you've got to protect the student exams. If the students did their exams and someone accessed the system and deleted every exam paper, that would be a disastrous situation. So the OAS is very focused on security. Thanks.
Okay,
Yes.
maybe in addition to Dr. James, when we are talking about security, currently there's a lot, for example, examples of ransomware. Number one, they can maybe the hacker can collect our patient or our students, and if you want, not much, per patient files, $100, for example, USD. Imagine, I think 2 or 3 years ago, there is a consulting company from the US. I don't know, maybe just contact to me. I would like to set up a medical medical university campus in Malaysia. I would like to interview me and get some information. Then I was like, wow, I have give some examples like IMU, blah, blah, blah. If you want to set up in Malaysia, for example, you have maybe Manipal, Malacca, and some public uni. So what happened? Let's say if that guy that will ask the question got some internal information, or maybe the word is espionage, or this is this, and then you give the what we call it information to the competitor. I think the issue is at the moment it is not about the technology. Sometimes it's about social engineering. The people, internal or external, whatever you have what we call it maybe OTP security kind of thing, and then we are safeguarded by our PDPA, Personal Data Act Protection 2014, but still there's a leeway or ideas from the hacker or the external maybe competitor who like to get some information from us. So we must be very cautious, not about technology, but then about the policy, about the so-called maybe secured cybersecurity, how to mitigate all these things. It's not as easy as that, lah. Okay, over to you, sir. Hasnain.
Yes, Dr. Faisal.
If I can add on that, Hasnain, and a great point and great point by Dr. Steve. I just put in a link to an article about the Irish healthcare system was hacked in 2021. And it was a very serious hack, and they got the information back, but it was never revealed by our politicians. But I believe a considerable sum of money was paid, and that's a review article about the whole event. So it's a very serious thing. I agree with that, and Dr. Siva's question is a very timely one. Particularly with medical data, but also student data. I mean, student data is personal data, where they live, what their gender is, what their creed is, all of this. It's very important.
Yeah. Thanks for adding. Yes, Dr. Faisal.
Okay, for my opinion, thanks for Dr. James and Dr. Nurhizam. For me, it is important to have the Data Protection Act. For likewise, we have Non-Disclosure Act agreement. For like our recording for now is also open. It's open to ransom and open for hackers to come in. And then if you have more technology savvy devices, I think the chances of our data is being exposed is very high. Okay, because of what? Because we keep our data in the cloud. For example, if you have a medical records in Hospital A, and then for some time, Hospital B also can cover up your medical from Hospital A. I think it is a very serious situations here. I think all over the world. So I think in Malaysia we have, of course, if you sit a student, we have a copy and paste. Plagiarisms is one of the most I think is most headache problems as we as a lecturer. Okay, and then if you go further for NFT, for example, we have copyright, because some other people just copy and paste their work and then claiming that their work is mine. Okay, their works. And then for my experiences for ransomware, I have built up one of the journals, and then my journal has been hacked. And then one of the hackers wanted me to pay 10,000 USD in order to get back my journals. And then I have published 3 issues in 1999 and 2000 in the year 2000. Okay, this I think is more or less about the data protections. I think governments and policymakers should take a serious steps to protect our data. Okay, I think that's all from me.
Yeah, thanks. Just to summarize and add on, I think we could even leverage, and I think Dr. James have highlighted, if you are going to have more secure systems, then you have to invest more. And if you have to like lower down the security parameter, then there are many options. So it all depends on the data. And I was reading one article which talks about using blockchain concept or methodology to secure data, but it may cost more than normal system. Another question by Datusiva again, using tablets and iPads during clinical learning is very awkward. So in clinical concept where clinical learning, I think you just imagine in the clinics where we have patients and and students are there, so they are. Any suggestion in alternative devices that would not get in get in the way of clinical demonstrations? Anyone have any idea sharing some devices?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, also if they're writing with their stylus and the tablet, as I would have been maybe years ago, it's yeah, they're constantly putting them down, and so they can do the skills based. I don't have an easy solution, but hopefully we'll get tech in future that can convert speech better to text. I mean, there is a lot out there, but gets it wrong. But if you're using your tablet for a clinical interaction, you can speak into the tablet and have one hand free still. I'm not sure. Maybe you need two, and Zato Siva would know better. But it was what I mentioned the other day. I mean, classic microphones, holding a microphone in a lecture theater, you can't write on your tablet because humans only have two hands, the last time I checked. So you have to put the mic down, and then you're on your tablet and you're kind of talking to the desk like this to try and get near the mic. So you have to have a clip-on mic or surround mics. So yeah, I mean, humans haven't evolved enough limbs for all the technology we want them to use. So it has to become more ergonomic. I totally take that Osiva's point. Where we go with this, who knows, what's the next generation? Implanted technology, your thoughts are stored on the computer. Then we have scary issues of morality, etc. But that's how far do we go with this, And then can the thoughts be downloaded to the computer, and then we're back to the security issue, etc., etc. So it's these are questions of our time. So do you, for Dato Siva's question, do you mount the device on your arm so you can talk into it, and then you have your two hands free? And then obviously, is it clean? Is it, if you can't bring it into a sterile environment, like somewhere where the patient is immunocompromised or there's a thoracic surgery going on. So all of these issues are questions of our time and need to be posed.
So you're saying that could be a very good PhD topic to do.
Yes, yeah. When's technology? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I use an example in my mobile apps, and I show the evolution of the phone from Alexander Graham Bell up to the smartphone. And the one after Alexander Graham Bell, my grandmother, who was a very elderly woman, she used those phones, the ones you kind of dialed and said hello and got. And I used a dial phone. I asked the students, how many of you have ever used a dialer on the phone? You know what I mean? Nobody. My son was walking through Artemis, and he said, what's that on the wall? And I said, you stand there. And I took my phone, and it was a call box. And I got the number, and I went around the corner and I called it. He said, that's a phone. Oh my gosh, he will never use a call box in his life, and what the next generation will be, the smartphones of today will be as antiquated as the dial phones of 30 years ago. So where is it going? And people will laugh at an iPhone 12 as antiquated technology, like I laughed at the Commodore 64, So apologies to anybody who's just paid 7,000 ringgits for their iPhone 14, but it's going to be in the bin in 6 years' time. I'm sorry to say. So personally, my tactic is I never get really high-end tech. I always get kind of medium-end tech because I know it's going to be obsolete very soon. So I buy often and low price, So who knows where the technology is going to go, but it will be driven by the needs of people like clinicians. Back to Dato Siva's question, that clinicians will say, no, I don't, a tablet and stylus is not good for the clinic environment. I need another way to engage in the digital world that suits me as a clinician, and that will be I mean, the technology shouldn't be foisted on doctors. Doctors should design their own technology. And there are some very techie doctors out there doing that kind of stuff and designing their own apps. Thanks.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. James. Yes, Dr. Nurhizam or Dr. Faisal, anything you would like to add? Any of device we could use in demonstrating the clinical, in a clinical setting, and that will not hurt us. Yeah.
I think like Dr. James mentioned earlier, maybe for the future new generation, maybe there will be like IR 5.0, probably that you install the cell or whatever your hand. I mean I don't know, maybe some chips, maybe at your like the Google spec, for example,
yeah.
record. You don't know. But maybe it's going to involve the data protection kind of thing. Maybe you're using abuse of it, for example. You don't know. Probably in this clinic, rather than one hand you are holding the tablet, another hand, or maybe just an audio or a camera, a body camera, for example, and then you can use that. So there's a lot of innovative devices that can be integrated, as I mentioned, with smart TV, letters, scribbles. Yeah, that's a lot.
I think as well in our computer science module in Foundation in Science, we have a psychology lecturer now, and she's designed 2 chapters to be embedded in the new computer science or computing studies, which are digital ethics. So, you know, the behavior of some people on platforms like Twitter, I don't go on it, is appalling. It's completely unethical behavior. If people wrote things like that, wrote letters like that 30 years ago, they'd be arrested by the police. But people are getting away with very unethical behavior. So I think young people today, you know, in my class, you know, the first thing I say to them, how many of you woke up this morning and reached for your phone before you know, looked after your own bodily functions, you know, and all the hands went up, you know? I'm saying, so the phone is more important than, you know, washing yourself or going to the bathroom when you wake up. So digital ethics, we were introduced to technology in a laboratory, in a closed environment, our generation. The first time I saw a computer was in school or university, and it was in a learning environment, and you know, so you were in awe of it. And these kids, my son had a electronic device when he was 2 or 3 years old, you know, so they engage socially, so they need to be taught that there's an actual an ethical and a professional responsibility on how to engage with these devices.
Yes, Dr. Hafiz.
Okay. My opinion is when you go about the digital devices, it can be like in the social engagement. Okay, and then if you go by the devices, you can go by the immersive 360. Immersive 360 that combining the tactile response. If let's say you want to have the laboratory experiences, you can have some sort like Dr. Nurhizam said, we have the Google Lens and so on. So, and then I think this one by Dr. James said that we should have the digital ethics that could barrier our students from goes beyond that that they can do. It is very important because I think student nowadays is very lack in terms of communications. In terms of communication, and the technology itself make the students lazy in terms of writing, in terms of communicating. Okay, and I think also if you use the communication, let's say you want to write down your thesis and so on, and then you just sit, and then some of the speech recognition software could rewrite and could write down for you. I think it is mostly student nowadays is very lazy to learn, because back in our time, no computers, and we play around with our peers and friends. I think that environment, I think, is very interesting. Nowadays, we are sitting down in front of our computers, and then and said, and we want more. We want more. The technology. Let's say we want embedded chips in our head to boost our brain and so on. I think people more greedy nowadays.
Yep.
More greedy nowadays for technologies. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think also communication. The first speaker this morning we alluded to, we were talking about emojis and empathic communication and the evolution of language in WhatsApp. And I'm okay. I'm a native English speaker, but I'm not pedantic about the use of English and punctuation in WhatsApp. But then that sometimes you get an email from a student that's written like a WhatsApp, you know. So it's got emojis and whoa, yay, Dr. James, you know, blah blah blah. And I kind of go, please rewrite this in a professional manner. You know, you can't go back to Dr. Siva's point. You can't write a medical report for your patient and put a kind of a sad emoji if they're going to be very sick. You know, you have to tell them in an empathic, textual way.
Yeah.
So
LOL, Dr. James.
Yeah. Yes, you're incredibly ill, LOL, and then a laughing emoji. That's not, we don't want to go there. So, you know, however language evolves, it still has to be empathic in its communication and professional. So the number of times I've sent to students, please rewrite this email in a professional manner and copy your mentor on the email is quite considerable. And I'm not particularly pedantic about language, but then WhatsApp, you know, I don't WhatsApp my student because it's not an IMU platform. All communications with students and all corporate communications between managers should be on Teams and our Outlook only because it's corporate information. I should not be revealing corporate information on a non-IMU platform, or obviously that back to Dr. Siva's point, patient information, even worse, you know. So back to the security issue. So there are platforms that are secure for that kind of academic and clinical information, and there's platforms where I personally think it's a complete no-no.
Yeah, just to add on, like just now that CEO what he asked about hardware, robotics comes into my mind, and Sophia. Nowadays, in certain airports, there is no assistance. There's actually robots. They will come and interact to you, and they will walk with you to the gate and assist you. Yeah.
Well, I was talking to a bot last night because there's an unusual deduction from my credit card. So I called Ireland, a long distance call, and I went through about 400. If you want blah, 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 press 403. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So about 4 years later, I finally got to the place I wanted to be. And it said, you know, it was about reporting this. And it said, please go to our website and report this, you know, and I just spent 30 ringgits to find this out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, I was kind of going, so one thing that's great about Asia, and I love, is traditional customer service is alive and well. If you ring Maxis, or I was in JPJ getting my driver's license renewed, and it was cool. It was really good. That's gone. Technology has killed that in the West, and it's a great sadness. You know, I mean, there are no banks you can walk into in Ireland anymore. There's about 2 branches, and you have to book. It takes about 5 years to get a booking to see a human being. And then all the rest are just tech branches. Now, there's nothing wrong with having tech branches or tech clinics or tech education, but it has to be empathic. The tech is being used to build a wall between humans and the information they actually need.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, you very rightly pointed out, and that was our theme: how we could humanize technology.
Yeah.
So that's where all what we discuss, and this is a question for me, like how we could humanize them. Humanize them mean humanize the technology or tools or hardware. Maybe we can go from Dr. Hafizul. You can share your thoughts.
Thanks. I think if you go to restaurant nowadays, also in Kuala Lumpur itself, they have a robotics that that replaces the waiter. And then sometimes the robotic itself is not show the facial empathy, and then that's why if you have an angry mood, and then you just call the robots.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
yeah.
There's a sushi restaurant near me, and I always dread being served by the robot. But kids love it. It's good for kids. But I agree with you. It's not my thing, I'm afraid.
Yeah, okay. But also in China, if you see lots of China technology nowadays is focusing on robots, and then their teacher also is a robot, and that a robot can speak 23 languages. I think in terms of humanizing, I think nowadays is very lack of human touch. Because parent nowadays can be replaced by placing another robot in their house, and then the robot takes place the role of the parents. I think this one is not good for the future kids.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
It's very bad for the future kid, because the human touch, we as a human need the human touch, not the robot touch. I think that is my opinion.
Yes, and it's terrible when you're actually talking to a very well-designed bot, and you're arguing with it, and you realize after about 20 minutes, I'm actually talking to a machine. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to get what I want from the gazelles.
Yeah,
You know,
that would be a very good design software, you know, that you didn't notice even. That
if you don't notice, you know. Well, the classic example is Alexa and the things that control your house. You know what I mean? And if you have an Irish accent and you ask it to put on the toast, it flushes the toilet. You know what I mean? So because it doesn't understand my accent. And I said, I was in someone's house the other day, and they had the Android version of Alexa, and I asked it what factorial 100 was, and it said 0 for about 20 minutes. So they hadn't designed it. Whereas the Apple one says 1 point blah 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 to 20 decimal places. You know, it's better designed. Whereas the Android one was going 00000 for. And my friend thought I'd broken their device. You know.
Yeah.
So bad software and hardware is better than no software and hardware at all, or is worse than no software and hardware at all. You know?
Agreed. Yes, Dr. Nurhizam, anything you would like to add?
I think basically it is about the so-called efficiency of operation. That's why some of them automate. When you press 1 for the press 2, and then if you go to McDonald's, for example, so nowadays we don't go to the counter, we go to the, you can get from the menu, one thing. Secondly, we are talking about, okay, please, I really hate when you go to the restaurant, please scan with your QR code and make the order. I was like, okay, can you help? I don't have this QR code. Imagine, and I did a lecture also then, because we want the human touch. Maybe probably the policy, they want to reduce these human resource workers, for example, one thing. So that's some of the automation that really, in fact, in accounting as well, software, now we are using this so-called automation, robotics. So we need to embrace to really, maybe the next generation of all this new tech that come to us. Maybe for us, not really comfortable, for the next future, they are aware of that. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, and I agree with you about back to the food, the QR code scanner. I like to order off menu. Please hold the mayonnaise, put extra spices in, put blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You just get a set meal that everybody gets, and that's finished already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to hold the ketchup or hold the mayonnaise or blah, blah, but you can't do it. You know what I mean? You have to talk to a human being to do that. Never mind.
Okay, Dr. Nurhizam, I think I want to add one more, because nowadays we said about the automation, and currently Shopee, the digital marketing platform has laid off 7,000 workers because of the automated robots that they bring in to the warehouses. This one is a very bad situation in terms of employability. I think if robots can take over your jobs, and then it's no more jobs for our next generations.
Yeah. Just to very much related to our topic, Maliana, I think, asked, can you share what are the main barriers to you, like using computing more? Because what we discussed just now, like our learners or young generation learners, they want more tech, but there is a gap between our academic staff. And so what would be done to remove some of these barriers? Wow, taking a pause to digest the question or what?
Okay, maybe let me start first.
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, basically, that's a digital gap. Sometimes there's a coin term like what we call it, digital native.
Yes.
native, and then there's a nomad.
Immigrant.
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 So maybe where is our category now? Like myself,
Mm.
maybe you imagine the new generation, sometimes when they just really born, then their father already take the selfie and put the Instagram and blah, blah. And in fact, 2-3 years already, they have their own gadget in front of them to just maybe to cool them down during the dining restaurant, blah, blah. You can see that. So there's a human touch is not there. In fact, if you see in some of the restaurants, people actually 4, 6 of them, they are actually very busy in front and texting. They are not actually talking to each other. One thing. Secondly, if you see maybe in Malaysia or some countries, still we have this digital gap. As I mentioned just now, you are talking about 5G. Maybe even in Cyberjaya also, the coverage is not there, for example. Not really. Imagine, for those our new generation, they want everything digital. So as for us, not really a digital nomad, we need to learn lah. Maybe like Alvin Toffler mentioned always in my class, learn, unlearn, and relearn. We need to learn new things and maybe unlearn, maybe like last time, maybe I learned like Pascal, blah, 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 programming, and then relearn something, 5G coding, what is actually something like that. So proactively as an educator, we need to embrace the new technology, the new things. Then only maybe we can reduce the so-called gap that I mentioned earlier. Okay, over to you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So can I ask? Yes, Dr. James or Dr. Faisal? Yes, please.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I want to add because
Yeah,
if
please.
you want to reduce our gap, Dr. Nurhizam said we need to learn and relearn. But for my class, I'm doing TikToks. Okay, because of what? Because nowadays people want the information in the short way. They want very, I think around 10 seconds or 20 seconds of videos. And now if you want to teach for them in the traditional way, they feel so sleepy. And then if you want them to engage with you, then you need to have some activity that they need to have the videos and upload to TikTok. Okay, TikToks. Okay, and then they feel energetic because you use and you embed the technology in their era. I think it is important to learn and relearn. And then also when you use the videos, and then you use some of the technology, I think it is embracing our future generation to use a lot of technology. I think TikTok nowadays is most famous platform. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's something good came out of COVID or lockdown, that we have discovered all these platforms, and a lot of educators have switched from learning management systems to these social media platforms. Yes, Dr. James, you would like to add?
I think though, humans will work it out. I mean, we've been hit by a wave of technology, particularly since the iPhone and iPad and stuff came out. And we've been overwhelmed by it in terms of how we should and do use it. Dr. Nurhizam referred to people, being on their phones when they're in the social environment. You know what I mean? I had a dinner party in my house and someone sent me a WhatsApp across the table. And I said, I'm sitting in front of you. You know what I mean? Don't come to my house and send me a WhatsApp across my table. So then people come to your house and they come to my house for a dinner party and they'll say, what's your Wi-Fi? I say, why? You're here to have a conversation. Put your phone down. So I'm like a proctor in an exam. All my guests have to leave their phone at the table in the hall.
Dr. James, even husband and wife nowadays, messaging.
And there's a very good picture. There's a famous graffiti artist in Europe. His paintings are very valuable, called Banksy. And it's a picture of a couple in an embrace. Their arms are around each other, and it looks like they're about to passionately embrace, but they're both looking at their phones behind each other's heads. Yeah, So, if somebody comes to my house and sends a WhatsApp across the table like Dr. James's food is rubbish to his wife, they're not going to be invited again. You know what I mean? Not because the food is rubbish. That's okay. I want criticism of my cooking. It's just the method of which they communicated it. You know what I mean? Lacks empathy. So yeah, I mean, I think, but I don't know about the future generation. My son is 13, and he's very techie. He has a PS5, but he's not obsessed by it, and he doesn't send excessive messaging even to his peers. I think it'll kind of begin to peter out. The generations will begin to use it in a more mature way and in a more reasoned way, you know, because they're not overwhelmed by it. Okay.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience? Please feel free to raise hand, and our tech team can give you a mic, and we can take question live.
Sorry, I'm actually guilty of this because my phone is going here about exams, and I have my tablet here, so I'm being rude to you guys by engaging with my other technology when I should be here. So,
Yeah.
so I'm.
Yes.
Yeah,
So, in summarize, if there's no question, so let me conclude. The real power of computing will be if we take care of, I borrow Dr. James' word, hardware, software, and do consider our users. So if users are familiar with tools and technology, we should actually mesh that level. Otherwise, they will get bored. And last statement, which I learned from one of the UNESCO director, that we always focus on high tech, low tech, and we always forget no tech. And I think some of you have highlighted that some of our own, like during lockdown, families have just one mobile, smart device, and a lot of children were like accessing through one device. So if we could find an appropriate blend and do consider how we could humanize technology, incorporating non-tech, you know, there was a very nice advertisement like disconnect to connect, you know. So what,
Yeah.
Dr. James, you write this, no Wi-Fi whenever there's a dinner or lunch.
Yeah. Well,
So,
but I think that you mentioned the hardware and software. Well, in my class, I teach the third word, which is not a very good word. It's called peopleware.
yes.
So peopleware is how people interact with the phone, you know. And I'll give you one last anecdote. My father was very elderly before he passed away, but he lived on his own, very independent. So I bought him a smartphone, so you didn't have to go walk to the phone. He could have it with him if he was watching TV. So I said, I'm going into another room. I'm going to call you on the phone, so pick it up so I know how to use it. So he had the phone on the tape couch. So I said, I could hear the phone ringing, couldn't hear him talking. And I said, why didn't you answer the call? He said, I did. I picked it up and I couldn't hear anything. And I said, oh, you have to press the little green button. And he said, my phone, you don't have to do that. It's much better than this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you
That's
know,
great. Yeah.
so basically, you know,
sometimes actually the tool or technology will complicate the process. So
yes.
if you're doing fine without technology, continue using, I mean, the process which you have been.
Yes.
So we have from Dr. Sunil, we need to set boundaries as to use technology during the teaching learning session. Just a thought. Yeah, so maybe I will rotate and have final wording from maybe Dr. Hafizul first. Your final statement.
Final statement, I think it is yes, to set a barrier and boundary I think for the children to have gadgets. And then if you ask them for the birthday present, I think they also need a gadget. Okay, mobile, iPad, and so on, PS5, like Dr. James' son. Okay, and so on. But I think it's most important thing is we as a human also require or needs human touch for teaching and learning. And then the gadget and all of technology as a supportive tool. But most important thing, we acknowledge our roots as humans and be able to disseminate the knowledge through the medium of technology. Okay, I think that's all.
Yes, over to Dr. Nurhizam.
Okay, basically, again, I agree with Dr. Hafizul. For example, how are we going to humanize technology? You want to have a high-end, low-end, whatever, and then embrace human touch. That is very, very important. The psychology aspect, the sociological aspect about it, not really we want to have everything is a gadget, text, kind of thing. Okay. That's all.
Dr. James, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, Humans shouldn't adapt to the technology should adapt to the humans.
Very well said. And with that, over to our MC. And I would like to thank all our distinguished guests taking time off. And it was a wonderful discussion, and I learned a lot of new things and terms. Yes, Dr. Nurul, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Faisal, Dr. Wash, and Dr. Nurhizam for the wonderful discussion. That was a very interesting session indeed, with lots of good points discussed. And thank you, Mr. Hasnain, for moderating and making the session very engaging.